Welcome to Season 2 of Boundless, where we give voice to Good Shepherd Rehabilitation's patients and their families. Our guests share their remarkable stories of how they triumphed over illness, injury, and disability through the arduous but life-changing process of rehabilitation. Joining me today is 30-year-old Grace Robinson from Pennsylvania's Poconos. Grace has what is called a mitochondrial disorder and has been going for rehab at Good Shepherd for the past 4 years for multiple therapies, which we'll learn about shortly. Grace, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And I understand that a mitochondrial disorder is considered a rare disease, and
Yes.
coincidentally, today happens to be Rare Disease Day.
Yes.
So the fates must be smiling on us. There's a reason why we're doing this.
100%.
So let's start off by getting an idea of your personality, because personalities are always like the engine that drives you through all the trials and tribulations of life, no matter what you have to endure or face. And you faced quite a bit in your 30 years, although I must say you look younger than 30.
I'd like to hear that.
So tell us about yourself, your personality, your family.
I consider myself to be energetic. I always have been. I love to be active. And that was probably one of the hard things with being disabled, is not being able to do everything you want to. But I've always just been high energy. Growing up in the Pocono Mountains, I have siblings close in age. And
Right. You have two siblings?
yes, I have an
sister and
older
a brother?
sister and a younger brother, yes.
Right. And Mom is in the studio with us today.
Yes.
Although
and-
she's in the fan box
Oh,
cheering
yeah.
you on, as she has, I'm sure, through all this.
Oh, yeah.
through
Her
your
and my
entire-
dad are wonderful. They've just been so supportive my whole life.
Right. You have that support network. So important. So a mitochondrial disorder, a rare disease, as we've said.
Mm-hmm.
Describe a little bit about what that is.
So mitochondrial disorders are, it's an umbrella term for all diseases that affect the mitochondria. So there's genetic disorders, and what it does is it causes your mitochondria to not function properly. So they're damaged, and it causes a lot of issue. The organ systems that are most affected are the ones that require the most amount of energy. So for me, my GI tract, my heart, my muscles, my brain were really affected. But everyone is affected a little differently, and there's just so many mutations, and it's kind of different for everyone.
Right. Yeah. These disorders tend to be varied depending on the individual, right?
Yeah.
So from what I've read, the mitochondria, they are little energy factories in each cell. Is that correct?
Yes. So the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. They are like little batteries that run our cells, and if they don't work right, nothing works right. So they really are responsible for our organs functioning.
Right. And so some mitochondria might be functioning fine while others not so.
Yeah. So depending on your mutation and things like that, some work right, some don't. For me, we have no idea why. I have perfect hearing. Everything else does not work right, but I will take my impeccable hearing.
Wow. Now, when did you first start getting symptoms of this disorder?
So I had mild symptoms my whole life. We didn't even realize I was sick because of how mild they were. Right. And then when puberty hit, I started having more and more symptoms, but we didn't actually think I had some very serious disease, or
Right.
we thought they would just figure this out and I'd be fine, and that was that. And
Right.
then in 2015, I had a procedure, and because of the anesthesia used, I ended up getting brain lesions all throughout my brain, and that was typical with certain mitochondrial disorders. So I was hospitalized for a long time with the brain lesions and had to go through rehab, but they did a muscle biopsy, and that's when they found I had a mitochondrial disorder.
Right. So the disorder created an issue which put you in the hospital.
Yeah.
And it was affecting your brain.
Yeah.
And that's when they officially diagnosed that it was a mitochondrial disorder.
Yes.
How about that? And then from there, go through the whole litany. I mean, it's shocking, really,
Yeah.
for those who don't understand this disease or are becoming acquainted with it, even right now. Tell us about all the things that affected.
Um, from there on, I ended up in a wheelchair. I had lost my short-term memory. I ended up having to do a lot of rehab for that. I don't remember a lot of it, but I've been
Hmm.
told the stories. But we did so much occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy. Um, my mom had to like transfer me in and out of wheelchairs, and once we started getting my brain under control, it was more about the physical stuff. But
Right. But you
yeah.
also then, the brain was the first thing that
Oh
seemed to
yeah.
be affected, but then you also had cardio
Yeah.
issues. Tell
I
us about that.
Yeah, I had GI failure and I went on to TPN, and my heart has always been mildly affected, but then I caught an infection and that got worse, and then I was in heart failure. My body was so weak. I had gone septic a few times, and I ended up in full leg braces just to be able to even stand up. My legs were so weak that my knees bent 30 degrees the wrong way. I ended up, my left foot was like clubbed in like a C from atrophy. And we kind of thought I would just be in a wheelchair for life at that point. But then
Right.
when I had the heart surgery, I just responded so much better. And insurance changed, and I could get back into a system that was able to manage my care a lot better. And just things really did a whole 180, luckily.
Right. You had a heart valve uh, fix, I guess is
Yes.
what you might call it, right?
Yeah.
They
So
repaired it.
yeah, they repaired it. They put stents and clips in, and my mitral valve was completely filled before. Couldn't close. Things were leaking out. There was a vegetation on it, and now it works perfectly.
Wow. And
Um,
this all goes back to the mitochondrial.
yeah, yeah. The mitochondrial disease caused everything, and then
Everything.
things snowball because you get complications from things, and then it's just sometimes chaos, but it's all from the mitochondrial
Right.
disorder.
And so this eventuated in you having to use a wheelchair.
Hmm.
How old are you at this point?
I'm 30 now, and I am walking without a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
Um,
But
but
when did you start in the wheelchair? How
um,
old were you?
I was 20 years old in 2015 when I had the brain lesions, and I was 100% wheelchair dependent
Oh,
at
it
that
started even
time.
from that, right from the
Yeah,
beginning.
right. With those
How
brain
about that?
lesions, it was wheelchair for the first time. But over the years, I would get in and out, but I would have strokes or brain lesions, sepsis, just everything kind of puts you back in the wheelchair. And then I got out a few times, and then we thought it was permanent in
Right. You didn't think you
that.
were getting out of a wheelchair.
No, and now I just do so much. It is amazing. I think I've been probably the most shocked, but my doctors, my parents, my physicians, and just physical therapists, they've all really been like, we did not expect this, but
Right.
we're just going with
Well,
it.
you walked into our studio today, and one would look at you and never think in a million years that you ever needed a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So, but let's go to the beginning of the rehab, which is the beginning of your journey to being totally independent and able to walk
Hmm.
without it or even the use of a cane.
Yeah.
So, you go to therapy, and what happens? You're in a wheelchair,
Hmm.
and what were your goals?
My goal was to walk more than 150 feet with my walker and leg braces. And I thought if I can do that, that is progress, and I'll be able to do a lot of things that I currently couldn't. And then I quickly was able to do that, and then my goals were changing. But I kind of just dreamed of being able to walk with a cane, and if I could do that, I would have been so happy. So the fact that I am not using a cane is just really wonderful.
Right. And what kind of therapies did you go through? What kind of technology were they using at Good Shepherd?
Oh, they've done a lot of stuff. They've done like stimulation, things like that. We do the Tech, which is really cool.
What is that?
The Tech is a machine that you stand in, and it
Uh-huh.
affects like your visual field, but also like the floor you're on can move too, and you're in the harness. So it's just you feel like you're in an egg,
Mm-hmm.
but
And
some
so because you had vision issues as well, right?
yes.
Which I guess then also balance
Yeah.
issues?
So I'm still in vision therapy. It's my last therapy, and I'm hoping to be done in just hopefully a few weeks. But the vision aspects really affected the balance, and that goes back to the brain lesions and pupils not doing what they need to and things like that. But it's wild the improvement I've
Yeah.
already
How many
had.
years did that take?
So I've been in PT for about
Physical therapy.
physical therapy for about
Right.
10 years now. With insurance changes, I had to move around a bit with
Right.
it, but I've been at Good Shepherd for 4 years, and they've really done a lot. But I've done so many types of therapies over the year. I've done swallow therapy to be able to swallow normally, where you get stimulation on your esophagus. I've done things where they stimulated me in like the bio nest to be able to just move my arms up and things like that. In vision therapy now, it's really interesting. You stand in front of a screen and it's doing things, and they have technology where they put these like 3D glasses on you, and then they turn them on and you see 3D.
Wow.
And it's things I really never imagined I would need or that existed.
Right.
But I am so glad it does exist because
Right.
it's
And
really
we should
given me
say
freedom.
this is like the latest technology.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is really so advanced, and it's exactly what you needed. Not
Mhm.
only is it advanced, and we always use those words, those adjectives, but it actually works. It
Yeah.
actually is almost miraculous in how, of course, it means that you have to work through it, but you do have that technology that can get you there.
Yeah. And Good Shepherd does have the latest technology. I haven't needed it, but just walking through the hallways, you see things that look kind of like exoskeletons that
Right.
they're putting people in, and all these things that are cutting edge. And, I know those things are probably changing people's lives, like the technology they used on me changed my life.
Right. And of course, the technology is one thing, but it would be nothing without the people, the professionals who know how to use it.
Oh, yeah. And my therapists have been amazing. I have just raved about them from day one, everyone there, and just the things they know how to do and the technology. And sometimes you're like in a contraption and you're like, how is this even like
Right.
doing this? And you're like in there, but you get so much improvement.
Right. And not only that, you seem like an innately optimistic person, despite all of the challenges you've had,
Yeah.
right? And that, I'm sure, has been a big plus in helping you get where you needed to be. But it does obviously help for you and everyone else who has to face things like this to have professionals, to have the therapists and the doctors and the nurses who can help you, get that motivation you need to get through it, because it is work.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of work. I have done exercises at home every day. I go to PT. It is a lot of work, and sometimes you get little plateaus, and that is also very discouraging at times. But even in the plateaus, I've lucked out. My therapists are adjusting plans and figuring out exactly what they need to do to help my muscles get
Right.
to where they need to be.
And they've worked with you so long and you with them that they know you.
Oh yeah. It was wild because I was discharged from PT, and I was
Mhm.
like I was so happy, don't get me wrong. Like I was tearing up. It felt so unreal. I was
Right.
thrilled, but at the same time I was like, this feels kind of odd because it's such a huge part of my life. I know my therapist so well. They know everything about my health, my conditions, but also like you get to know them on a personal level.
Right.
So it was like a little sad in some ways. I'm like, I'm gonna miss my therapist.
Isn't that something? That's right, because you do build that relationship,
Yeah.
and that is what helps power you through. And
Mhm.
those are the kind of things you can't itemize or quantify. That the kind of qualities of person to person interaction
Oh yeah.
and human spirit and warmth
Mhm.
and all those things that count.
Yeah. And a good therapist is so important
Right.
on a rehab journey. And I've lucked out where I've had just amazing therapists.
And so now you've gone from wheelchair to cane to walking freely.
Mhm.
What are your goals now?
My goals are just to keep up with my mobility and do as much as I can with it. I'm a college student, so everything is going to be easier when I enter the workforce, being able to walk. As much as you like to believe there aren't boundaries in the world, so many places are not wheelchair accessible.
Hmm.
So it's really difficult
Yeah.
at times. So, and I would love the world to be 100% wheelchair
Right.
accessible,
Of course.
but just being able to walk will, I think, really just help me throughout life. And I volunteer. I'm a Girl Scout leader. I go on hikes.
That's
I
fantastic.
I grew up hiking. It was my favorite thing. I thought I would never hike again, and I
Right.
remember crying over it actually.
Right. You grew up in the Poconos surrounded by forest.
Yeah, I live right off game lands. I walk across the street to a hiking path of game lands.
Wow.
And just hiking again has been really amazing.
Right. So that your journey is now taking you into places that you thought might have been prohibited, but no
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
And so you're an online student at Northampton Community College.
Yes.
And what would you like to do? What is your professional goals?
My goal is to be an ABA therapist and work with kids with autism and intellectual disabilities. That I love that community. That's a huge part of my community. Mitochondrial disease, everyone's affected different ways, and
Right.
I really look forward to it.
Well, it sounds like, you have the confidence, you have, the ability, and, you have the spirit to make all your dreams come true. And we couldn't be more happy for you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So, Grace, your story is an inspiration, and we thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Oh, thank you for having me on Rare Disease Day.
Exactly. And congratulations on your graduation. Best of luck going forward.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And that's it for us. Check in with us next time for another episode of Boundless and more personal stories like Grace's of perseverance, health, and wellness from Good Shepherd Rehabilitation. I'm Grover Silcox. Thanks for tuning in.